Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Wrap, brought to you by Michigan Medicine Headlines. I'm Dan Elbin with the Department of Communication.
And I'm the other Dan, Dan Zemke, Program Manager for Marketing and Communications at Community Health Services of U of M Health. Today, we're going to take action against hunger in our community, all in honor of Hunger Action Month.
But first, I want you to take action and get caught up on any episode of The Wrap you may have missed. You can find the shows on Stitcher, iTunes, or any other podcast hosting platform. New shows can also be found on the Michigan Medicine YouTube channel and as part of the Headlines Week in Review.
With that, let's bring in a veteran of The Wrap, Alfreda Rooks, and a Wrap newbie, Erica Owen. Alfreda and Erica, thanks for being here.
Now, before we dive deep into our conversation, can you both tell us a bit about yourselves and your background and roles here at Michigan Medicine and across the organization?
Hello, everyone. I'm Erica Owen. I'm a registered dietitian and I manage nutrition programs at M Healthy. I've been with M Healthy for about 18 years, and my main role with them is, like I said, nutrition programs and valuing our employee health and what we can do to help people thrive in all dimensions of well-being. And today, when we're here to talk about Hunger Action, we're doing this because you have to be able to meet your basic needs in order to thrive. And food is one of those basic needs.
And so good morning, everyone. I'm no stranger to The Wrap, as the Dan said. I'm Alfreda Rooks. I am the Director of Community Health Services for U of M Health Michigan Medicine. And we have outward-facing community-embedded programs that provide services or programs that address social needs and community, and hunger food access happens to be one of those programs.
All right, so tell us more about Hunger Action Month. What is it and why is it so important?
September is recognized as Hunger Action Month by Feeding America. It's a time when individuals and organizations come together to fight hunger and food insecurity. 47 million people in the U.S. are food insecure. 14 million of those are children. In Washtenaw County, nearly 10% of our residents are also food insecure, and in Wayne and Genesee County, it's nearly 14%. Also, more than 30% of our U of M students experience food insecurity in some way. Why we're addressing this through M Healthy is that the employees who screen positive for food insecurity, the majority of them also reported moderate to high health risk. Of those employees who screened positive for food insecurity, the majority reported moderate to high health risks. When faced with limited resources, people must make choices, compromises, and employ coping strategies, such as choosing between paying for food or other things such as utilities, medical care, and housing.
So when we talk about hunger, in this sense, I assume that there's a lot of different aspects to it, right? Are we also talking about malnutrition? Are we talking about food deserts, people not getting the proper amount of nutrients they need? Sort of what is the all-encompassing aspect of hunger?
So we define food insecurity as a lack of consistent access to food, that's the food desert, as well as enough nutrient-dense foods for every person in a household to live an active and healthy life.
And I think there's one other thing that needs to be, stated when we talk about that. We think about food deserts, but there's also the intersection between having enough food places in your community, and the real issue is having lack of transportation to access that food.
Mm-hmm.
And so for many years, people thought that that Ypsilanti, one of our neighboring communities, was a food desert, when in actuality, it was not a food desert because of the number of grocery stores or places to be able to access food. It was actually a transportation desert because of the lack of available transportation to be able to get to the grocery stores that were available in that community.
Yeah, now, Frida, I wonder if you could just take a step back real quick and define sort of what we mean when we say food desert, right? Like, is it just mean a lack of grocery stores like you just touched on?
So food desert really means is a lack of access to nutritious foods or lack of places to go and get nutritious foods. And so that could be lack of farmers markets. It could also mean, again, lack of grocery stores. It could mean that there are no food pantries, or you don't have access to the local food pantries. There might not be an agency like Food Gatherers, which we have in our community, where they're partnering with churches or other locations for food to be distributed to community members. it's all of those things that mean that there's a lack of access to food services.
As a Detroiter myself, I'm really glad that you highlighted that transportation aspect, because we in the city we encounter a lot of those challenges via like busing not going as far around the city to like the different grocery stores and whatnot, and people not having like cars and whatnot in order to get to these places for food and nutrition. So what sort of initiatives is Michigan Medicine enacting to help alleviate hunger?
So I'll take that one first. And I think when we think about the work that mHealthy is doing for our faculty, staff, and our learners and community with the Maize and Blue Pantry, which I'm sure Erica will talk a little bit more about in a few moments. But we also have our larger initiative, which really started during the pandemic and was kind of grew out of that. During the pandemic, we had regular food drives because we knew at that moment in time that it was very difficult for people to get out necessarily to go to the grocery store, because we didn't know at that time, just how contagious the disease was. Remember, we were on shutdown too, so you really couldn't get out. And so the other thing that happened during the pandemic is that there were people who needed help for the very first time. And these were people who did not know how to access the resources that were available in community. And so being able to host food drives at our Michigan Medicine NCRC and have drive-up drives where people could drop off food, and then partner with Food Gatherers, who is our local agency that does distribution to our food pantries in Washtenaw County, was very impactful for not just our community, but also for our faculty, our staff, our learners, to be able to have that kind of partnership, and for people to be able to feel like they were actually contributing and doing something to help during the pandemic. And from those drives grew under our Senior Vice President and Chief Environmental, Social, and Governance Officer, Tony Denton, the spark of let's do a million meal campaign. And so again, partnering with Food Gatherers, we are halfway to our goal of having the equivalent of 1 million meals raised in Washtenaw County. And so we are very, very excited about that, and having an opportunity to partner with Hunger Action Month with mHealthy to bring awareness that there is still a need in our communities.
And Food Gatherers also helps to supply the Maize and Blue cupboard. So a lot of the Million Meals campaign and helping Food Gatherers can also help our cupboard right here on campus. As Elfrida mentioned, and I just talked about, the Maize and Blue cupboard is located on the Central Academic Campus. So that also is an access issue for a lot of people who are not in that area, right? So that is one spot that anyone with an M card, faculty, staff, student, can access. But then some people can't get there, right? They aren't open 24/7. Their bus lines might be different around the hospital versus the campus. So we do have a list of resources on our website as well of where people can find pantries in the area. We link them to the Food Gatherer site, which you can put in your zip code, and it tells you all the different pantries, the times that they're open, because times do change as well, right? And then also if they have any specialty things that they offer at those pantry sites, like if they have special dietary items at those locations. So it really is a nice way to find the resource that fits you.
I was wondering if, just as a follow-up, I know that there's a lot of stigma involved when it comes to food insecurity, especially in sort of a work setting where you don't want to admit that you don't know where your next meal is coming from, or that you're not able to afford your groceries, or if you are buying groceries, you can't afford the electricity bill that month. Can you two touch a little bit on that? I know that we have employees at Michigan Medicine or at U of M in general who maybe do need this assistance. And that's why the Maize and Blue cupboard exists, why Food Gatherers exists, et cetera. Can you just talk a little bit about that stigma and how maybe we can help people move past that stigma to get the help that they need? Because so many people here want to help.
I believe that one of the reasons we do this campaign around Hunger Action Month is to try and decrease that stigma, to increase awareness that this happens in all communities, right? That anyone could be one incident away from needing assistance in lots of different ways. And just trying to be compassionate about that. Like, everybody has a different need at all different times, and listening and hearing and giving a resource when someone is able to come out of a place of fear and share that with someone. And then hopefully by at least exposing people to where the resources are, they can find it when they need it, or when they hear about someone, or maybe see someone exhibiting some of the behaviors that they might exhibit before saying that they need help, right? That especially like in the food situation, if you're having, hey, let's all go out to lunch, and that person consistently is saying, no, no, thank you. And then they're also not pulling out a lunch bag, or, they might say something like, my child had this going on and I had to give my money to my child for this, or what, but cueing into the little things that might help that person sooner without having to actually come out and admit something that might be hard for them.
Daniel, when you asked that question, it reminded me of my days when I was a volunteer at SOS Community Services, and I would see people who I knew in passing from the hospital who would come in to get services. And I always made it a point to make sure that unless they acknowledged me, I didn't acknowledge them as knowing them, and would treat people with the same dignity and respect. And always made sure that because I knew where resources and different things were, it was just like you said, Erica, would post things in the break room, just information, so that people would know. And I think one of the ways that we get past the stigma is by, number one, making sure that we're not singling any one person out, but saying that, hey, I just learned about some really great resources, and sharing that in our team meetings, and say, our patients may say that we may come across a patient or a family or visitor who is in need of this, and so want you all to be aware of this information. It could also be where, if we're in community somewhere, and somebody comes up to us, that we can say, in case you're walking down the street and somebody comes to you and they're asking you for money, then you can also say, in addition to this, did you know that in Washtenaw County, 7 days a week, you can get either a bag of groceries or a hot meal, and these are the places where you can go to get this. So it's really about being open. With our ROS school-based health centers, we have a backpack program. So most of our school-based health centers are in places where free reduced lunch rate is greater than 50%. The kids are getting their meals at school over the weekend. If the family is going to be food insecure, here's a backpack, because everybody has a backpack, right? And so the kids aren't being teased or bullied. And so you carry your backpack and you have nutritious food for the weekend. And it's doing more things like that. And especially, as I said, when you think about it, that since the pandemic, when people had to ask for help for the very first time, how can we maintain and keep a person's dignity intact? Especially for parents who've always been able to supply their children's needs. And now this was a time when they couldn't. How do we maintain that dignity and that self-esteem and that self-respect? And those are the things that we try to make sure that we're doing.
We talk a lot about the different partnerships and the work that we do in the community in order to fight hunger amongst the public. I know that Michigan Medicine does provide a lot of grant funding in order to attack these different issues in the community. Can we talk about any of the Michigan Medicine grantees in the community working towards this cause as well?
Yes, we can. I think one of our I want to talk about something that we do inside the institution first that goes outward to community. And that's our Ann Arbor Meals on Wheels program that recently celebrated a very large milestone anniversary of 50 years of providing services to homebound older adults and others in the Ann Arbor area. And we've also, we are the Michigan Medicine or U of M Health is the food vendor for Ypsilanti Meals on Wheels, which a lot of folks don't know. And one of the reasons why we partner with them is for two reasons. Number one, 51% of their clients had a Michigan medicine physician, and they were having difficulties with providing 7 days of meals. And so the grant that we provide through our Patient Food Nutrition Services program actually provides them the opportunity to have 7 days of meals for those folks in their community. And that was very important to us to make sure there was parity in that community between those two programs. The other grant that we funded that comes to mind is Fed Up Ministries, which they go out into the community and provide meals for the homeless, folks who are experiencing homelessness. And that's a community where, when we think about it, where do you get your meals from? We also provide support for Hope Clinic. We provide support for their behavioral health clinic, but Hope Clinic also has a food pantry as well as congregate meals. The other thing that we do in community, we don't necessarily fund this, but it is part of community health services in our geriatric center, is that we do congregate meals out of our Turner Senior Resource Center every Tuesday and Friday. And it has a twofold purpose. It's nutritious meals for older adults, but it's also social interaction and engagement. And that was something that we found during the pandemic, that older adults were socially isolated. And when you have an older adult who's socially isolated, who does not have that emotional or social connection, it can lead to both mental health issues around depression, but also physical health, because depression can also manifest itself in physical health issues. And so doing those things, being there, thinking of creative ways to engage with individuals, especially as food. I'm from the South, and so food is always everything as far as social. We're going to feed you, right? And so it's one of those social activities. And so these things that we do with Fed Up Ministries, bringing folks who are experiencing homelessness together to have a meal, having volunteers through Ann Arbor Meals on Wheels and Ypsilanti Meals on Wheels go and engage with older adults who may be homebound. That social interaction is important. Those things that we do it's more than just feeding the stomach or feeding the nutrition, it's also feeding the soul. And so those are the things that are very important as we talk about food and nutrition.
I love that. I think it's amazing the work that your teams are doing, and the teams outside, who are teaming up with us are doing to help fight hunger. What if our listeners want to help out? What can they do in their, personal and daily lives? And then along the same lines, if our listeners need help and they want to reach out, don't know how to reach out, or want to do so in a, subtle way where they're not explicitly asking for help while at work, what can they do? So it's sort of a two-part question. How can you help out if you want to help out, and how can you seek out help if you need it?
So there are multiple ways that you can get help, right? You can, Food Gatherers is our Washtenaw County food bank, and they have a great finder that, as long as you know the website, you can get a lot of good educational materials there, and you can find different food resources there, like Elfrida mentioned, like where you can get hot food, where you can get groceries, where you can get community meals, whatever that might be. Another thing is that here on campus, if you're part of our campus community, you can go to the Maize and Blue Cupboard. I have as your M card there. You don't have to leave them any identifying information. So it's a nice place to be able to go and kind of shop around. It's a grocery-like feel. You can shop around, get the food that you want, need, and go and not have to have the stigma of leaving your personal identification information. Now, as far as what you could do to help is knowing where to find these resources and being able to post the information up, make it available to others. And then you can also donate to any of these groups. So you can donate directly to food gatherers. You can donate directly to Maize and Blue Cupboard, either food or money, or you can do a donation drive in your own departments or at home in your communities. And then right now through September, we have different donation boxes and lots of different departments throughout Michigan Medicine and the academic campuses. And we'll be going around and gathering those around October 1st and then taking them directly over to Maize and Blue Cupboard. So yeah, there are a lot of different things out there that you can be doing. And then Elfrida, I'm sure that you have some things that you could add too.
Oh, most definitely. One of the biggest is please help us reach our goal. Our Million Meals campaign is still going underway. As I said, we're a little bit more than halfway to our goal. We want to reach 1 million meals. And because I'm always an overachiever, we want to reach more than 1 million meals. And so please, please, please donate to that. The other piece is just be aware of what the resources are. We never know. People don't always tell us what they're going through. And so you may meet someone who having a conversation and you don't know that they are in need. That's one of the ways. The other is not everyone has access to the internet. And so just having that information going for yourself and educating yourself about what it is. Food gatherers is one. If you're in Wayne County, because we do have footprints in Wayne County as well, it's gleaners. So look at the gleaners and understand what those resources are. Become a resource yourself for that. If you belong to a Girl Scout group, if you belong to a Boy Scout group, if you belong to Jack and Jill or any of the other teen programs that may exist, as a community service act or community service group at your school, organize a drive to do that. And not just with the food. Food is very important, but also think about wintertime is coming. Maybe it's a sock drive. If your team at your school, if you're part of your basketball, your football team, maybe as one of your events to gain entry into the event, bring 2 non-perishable items and then take that to your local food bank. There are so many different ways that we can stamp out hunger, but recognize that what we want to do is have the biggest impact that we possibly can on making sure that everyone has access to healthy and nutritious foods. So thank you, folks, for taking the time to listen.
I just have one more thing I want to add. As a host, I don't often get to add as the subject expert, but I'm excited about this. I have volunteered for Ann Arbor Meals on Wheels before. This is a very flexible program that you can volunteer throughout the year. You get to meet those homebound in the community. You get to deliver their meals, and you get to brighten their day. That always feels so good when, like, you get to interact with that person and like you just like you see their smile. It's a great feeling. I highly recommend volunteering for the program. They're always looking for volunteers. They're always looking for help because they deliver Monday through Saturday. They are consistent about that. So if you have the opportunity, if you have the drive for it, or if you're just looking for like, you know what, I want to give back to the community a little bit, I think that is a great program to give to. So definitely check out Ann Arbor Meals on Wheels volunteering with them.
Thank you, Dan. And also Ypsilanti Meals on Wheels. Let's put in for them too.
Yes.
Because they both do a lot of great work in the community with our homebound individuals. And there may be there may be a Meals on Wheels in your community that needs assistance too.
Absolutely. Not just Ann Arbor Meals on Wheels, but the Meals on Wheels program in general. Great program, great volunteering opportunity. So definitely check that out.
You can also volunteer at things like food gatherers and at the Maize and Blue Cupboard. Food gatherers, we've done some team building activities there, right? So you, as far as like a department or community group, you can schedule to go in and help them to go through, and whether it's you can go through produce and get rid of ones that are bad, but making sure that the food that's going out with the drivers is ready to go. They need a lot of help with that. They do a lot of good food rescue that comes from our local grocery grocery stores, local restaurants, that sort of thing. The food rescue mission brings food to food gatherers as well, and then takes that out. So any help that you can give to any of our community organizations would be most helpful. Thank
Love everyone putting down all these volunteering opportunities. Just makes you feel good. Is there anything else you two would like our listeners to take away from Hunger Action Month?
I think the most important thing to remember during Hunger Action Month is that even a small act has great impact.
If you don't need the resource, be the resource.
I love that. Those are two very quick thoughts, but I think very powerful thoughts. And I think that's great. Thank you so much, Erica and Alfreda, for sharing your thoughts, sharing your insight into such an important cause during Hunger Action Month. If you want to learn more about the month and what you can do, go to mmheadlines.org. That's mmheadlines.org.
All right, it's time for the lightning round. When we ask one of the guests 4 questions they have not seen before. Erica, since this is your first show, we're putting you in the hot seat. Are you ready to go?
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right. So fighting hunger is obviously a very important cause. Are there any other causes or volunteer opportunities that you like to do in your free time?
I would say it actually is kind of along the same line, but produce. Again, we do things like farmers markets, but there are a lot of other farmers markets in the area, and I think that it supports our local farmers, so it's supporting a local economy. It's getting the fruits and vegetables and nutrient-dense foods into our communities and into our bodies, and yeah, it's fun, right? It's fun to go in and have someone in your community. Don't worry about transportation as much, right? You can get there, get fresh food, meet the people, know where your food is coming from. It just creates a whole feeling around the food instead of not like going to the grocery store and picking it off the shelf.
So I really love that, Erica. September is synonymous with the start of fall in Michigan. So what's your favorite fall activity to do around the state?
I love to hike. So I love the fall, especially to hike because it's a little cooler than in the summer, and my allergies don't flare up as much in the fall as they do in the spring.
I hear you on that. That's a huge deal. It's Classical Music Month. Do you like classical music? And if not, what's your favorite band or genre of music?
Not a big classical music fan. I did have to play it when I took piano back in 8th grade, so I have some some experience with it, but it's not something that I usually listen to. Oh, my favorite? That's really tough for me. I'm a huge Elvis fan, but I'd also say Elvis, Prince, and Michael Jackson. Those are some of my favorites.
We are dealing with the royalty of music. You dropped the king, you dropped Prince, you dropped the king of pop. So all right. I love all the music choices right there. Do you have any hobbies or interests that you think would surprise people, Erica?
Probably the one that surprises people is I mentioned hiking, but I love to actually backpack. So in 21 and in 23, I backpacked across Isle Royale up in Lake Superior by myself.
Wow.
So that's something a little different about me.
How long were you up there?
About 5 days.
Wow, by yourself. That's impressive. What's the coolest place you backpacked? Is that it?
The coolest place, I lived in Vermont for a while, and I love to hike in more mountainous area. It's a little more challenging.
Yeah, the Green Mountains.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Erica, for playing along and for sharing your knowledge during Hunger Action Month. Once again, if you want to learn more about the month and activities taking place at U of M Health, go to mmheadlines.org. That's mmheadlines.org.
All right, Dan. We asked Erica about her favorite genre of music. What is your favorite?
Yeah, so well, like her, I'm not hugely into classical music, though my wife actually is a harpist, and I do love listening to her play the harp. So that will
Wow.
get me into classical music in that sense. But in general, I think this is true of a lot of people, like you're sort of stuck in the era that you were really growing up in, like when you were like a teenager or early 20s. I'm stuck in the 90s. Like I love 90s music. I went to a concert where it was Bare Naked Ladies, Gin Blossoms, and was it Better Than Ezra? And it was like the peak like 90s concert, and it was amazing. And then I realized I was surrounded by only people my age. But that was fine. And then I'm like, these are my people. Right? So I'm definitely all about the 90s music. I could do that all the time. What about you?
So, like you, that is imprisoned by your favorite music as a kid. My favorite music growing up was actually musicals.
Okay.
And since it's spooky season right now, you know, we're getting into that a little bit of Halloween. I'm feeling Sweeney Todd right now. Sweeney Todd is one of my favorite musicals of all time, especially the Angela Lansbury rendition in the 70s. And whew, I can listen to that for a very long time. Whew. Oh,
So
rest in
what-
peace to Angela
what-
Lansbury. Oh.
What's your favorite musical of all time?
My favorite musical of all time. You're putting me in the hot seat right now.
I am.
I'm going to say I'm not sure if it's of all time, but it is one of my favorites. I'm going to cop out like that. I'm going to say Little Shop of Horrors. Back to that spooky sort of thing. I always loved singing with the dentists in You'll Be a Dentist song. So that's one of my favorite things ever. So yeah, if you ever
So you're
want,
creepy.
hey, so I'm creepy. Oh,
Yeah. I guess so.
thanks, Dan.
Yeah,
really,
no problem.
really want to endear our listeners to how spooky Dan is.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to take that. I'll take the spookiness.
Take it
Fine.
as a compliment.
You can take the 90s imprisonment. I will take the spookiness, and we'll roll with that.
Exactly. Sounds good. All right, it's time for the weekly trivia contest. This week's question is, UMATS helps treat patients who have substance use disorder at Michigan Medicine. But what does UMATS stand for? And it's UMATS. Once again, what does UMATS stand for? UMATS. You can find the answer in headlines, and once you know it, send it to headlines@med.umich.edu for the chance to win a prize.
So that's all we have for this week. Thank you so much to Erica and Elfrida for joining us today and telling us all about Hunger Action Month.
And thanks, as always, to our listeners and viewers for everything you do for patients, families, and each other. We'll see you next time.